Horror is a blanket term for a genre meant to invoke terror into the audience. It can cross into various other genres and be further categorized into subgenres. In today's video, we'll be focusing on action horror, a subgenre that, like the name suggests, combines the frenetic high-voltage elements of the action genre, including the usage of powerful weaponry, explosions, and fight sequences, with an adversary that cannot be easily defeated. Typically, the protagonists have a predilection to survive and fight back at any cost. Supernatural creatures, the undead, even human error in the form of viral outbreaks or experimentation may be present, as well as government agencies and military personnel. Hey everyone, so the first film that I'm going to be recommending is Project Wolf Hunting, which came out in 2022. This is a South Korean action horror thriller. Quick side note, I do want to thank Ice9, who commented on one of my videos and gave me this recommendation. This one is involving a cargo ship that's transferring all these criminals from the Philippines to South Korea. But things go awry quickly because there is a riot involved and because there's something else lurking beneath the deck involving human experimentation. So the best way I could really describe this movie is if you're a gore hound, then this is your type of movie because it is like just from start to finish, just action and gore pretty much. And it's like that over the top kind of gore where people are being cut open and it's like blood is spewing out like a geyser. That's what I mean by that. While there is a lack of characterization because there are so many people aboard the Frontier Titan and we don't really get to know these individuals, they're just like a lamb to the slaughter because of Alpha, this World War II human experiment super soldier that was created with its eyes sewn shut and it's like infested with maggots and has infrared vision and just primal instincts. It has wolf DNA. And so, like I said, its main objective is just to kill and destroy anything that comes within its grasp. It just has to eliminate its target. So it makes it really interesting going from like a riot situation, which is pretty violent, to getting even more insane and over the top with the gore and the violence. The director stated that he used over 2.5 tons of blood. Also, something that I find really interesting was that this was kind of loosely inspired by real events. So something that I read in an article, the director stated that he was inspired by this like real life event that took place where all these inmates escaped this prison in the Philippines. So I guess that was like the foundation. Pretty much that's what the film is, like I said, but highly, highly enjoyable. Like this is my type of movie. I think the only minor difficulty I had with my viewing experience was that when the betrayal starts happening and then all these factions starts forming and it gets a little convoluted, I'm not gonna lie, just because there's a lot going on between all these characters that I'm trying to decipher who's in favor of whose side. Other than that, I wish the film wouldn't have ended on a cliffhanger, setting it up for a sequel, because I feel like it could have just been like its own film instead of, you know, a continuation, whether they decide to or not, I don't know. But the other thing that I wanted to mention about this movie is that it's kind of funny how the film pokes fun at itself with the title, Project Wolf Hunting. Next we have Dog Soldiers, which came out in 2002. This one is directed by Neil Marshall and produced by Keith Bell. It involves a British squad whose routine training mission takes an unsavory turn as they're being hunted the night of a full moon. Now, if you've been on my channel for a bit, you've probably already heard me state that out of all the classic movie monsters, werewolves is my favorite. Definitely at the top of the list. So underrated. And this movie just delivered in every which way because I found these creatures, the design of this pack of werewolves, which is different because it's not like focused solely on like a curse and somebody trying to overcome it or one person who's afflicted. It's like a pack of them and they're so unique with how they have these like oversized heads and lanky bodies. And something that Blair stated was that they appear very feminine, which is intentional because that's what the director wanted. The people who played the werewolves, the creatures, they were actually dancers. I thought they were just, you know, stunt performers, but they were dancers and they were on stilts, which became more of a hurdle for them. But it wasn't until 1996 that a script was drafted for the film and then eventually being released in 2002. Something that I did want to state that I found really interesting was that the director had mentioned not wanting to be pigeonholed, which goes back and ties into what I stated earlier. He wanted to do something rather unique and different with werewolves and blending, you know, this action horror. It was kind of terrifying to me. Just the way they would creep in, and I think it's the fluidity of it, like just their movements, the way they would creep in through a window. It was laughable, but also terrifying, if that makes sense. So I think the director accomplished what he was setting out to do, because I did have a few good laughs watching that movie. Highly enjoyed it, and I would highly recommend it. Planet Terror, half of the Grindhouse double feature, directed by Robert Rodriguez, involving residents of a rural Texas town as they must band together against a biochemical outbreak, causing its casualties to become zombie-like creatures while also facing a rogue military unit. This love letter of a creation, a true pastiche paying homage to 70s exploitation movies, Grindhouse double feature films, is still reigning as one of my personal favorites. I still remember seeing it back in 2007 when I was in high school, just being so hyped up for it. It also has some really memorable characters such as Cherry Darling because of that machine gun. I think it's still just iconic, everything about it. It was cast perfectly. I loved everyone that was involved in this project, such as Marley Shelton, who plays the anesthesiologist. You have so many just amazing actors that were a part of this. Tom Savini, who was part of the special effects makeup team, who's also featured in the film. One of my favorite things about this movie is the gore and the violence and how over the top it is and how it doesn't take itself too seriously, but still has a great story. Even with its subplots, it never felt superfluous. It never felt like anything was running astray. And it concludes in a very satisfying way. That's how I interpreted this film, even though I know it's probably not for everyone and a lot of people may not enjoy it. I find this one so good and so entertaining throughout. See what I mean? I told you I'd find it. So yeah, this was one of the ones that I got a while back. I didn't do it for the video, but I didn't do it for the video that I did on Viper Video, but I actually got this. This is from the first time I went to Viper Video. But like I was saying, the gore and the violence in this movie, you have gunshot wounds, you have a machine gun for a leg, you have pus, you have explosions, you have someone's testicles melting off, you have people being devoured and left brainless, quite literally, Fergie's character. You have people just being torn to bits and quite laughable in certain aspects. I think this movie is pretty funny with its one-liners. It's so quotable. It's a great experience, great time, very nostalgic for me. And I just remember back when, Blockbuster was a thing, I actually had this huge frame poster back when Blockbuster would sell them, which were pretty pricey, I will say that, especially for a kid that was still in high school. But I had this poster which had Marley Shelton's character with the syringe in her hand. But if you haven't watched Planet Terror, I would highly recommend it. Just Grindhouse in general, because this is a movie that delivers in what it's setting out to do. Not taking itself too seriously, just having fun with the concept, just going wacky with it, and just delivering with the thrills. This next entry, like the others I previously discussed, has no shortage of gore, and that is VFW, which came out in 2019. A mundane night turns to utter chaos for veterans at a VFW as they are inundated with a barrage of ultra-violence involving a relentless gang, drugs, and a teenage girl. This was a first-time watch for me, and something that I noticed with the opening credits, once it stated the director, I was like, wow, mind-blowing moment, because it is Joe Begos who directed Christmas Bloody Christmas, which I put that in honorable mentions because that was, at the end of the 2022 wrap-up that I did, that was a really great movie. Actually, out of the three that I'm going to mention, my favorite. He also did Bliss, which was a decent film. Not one of my favorites amongst the three, but then I watched VFW and wow, this cast is just stellar. You have Stephen Lang from Don't Breathe, you have Fred Williamson, you have Martin Kove from Cobra Kai and the Karate Kid films. You also have Dora Madison Burge, who's also been in other Joe Begos films. So this was a stellar cast. Something that I want to point out, that I've been pointing out with every other entry, is the gore and the violence, of course. This one, like I said, no shortage of it, because it is so intense. It has some of the most interesting ways that you could, I guess, dismember somebody. And the fact that they're being pitted against this gang who wants this drug called hype. And it turns these people, these addicted individuals, into like zombies in a way because of the way they act, because they want their fix and they want the drugs. It's I thought it was kind of like a commentary on something, but I don't think it was supposed to be taken that seriously, so I didn't look too into it. But I really enjoyed the characters in this movie, specifically the veterans, because their discussions that they're having, it reminded me of the females in Death Proof. I love films that take place in one single location, the fact that it's taking place at this bar. And like I said in the beginning, something that I really adore with this director and the stylistic choices is the oversaturation with the neon and all the colors. I adore it so much. And plus the 16mm grain that's added to it. But if you're looking for a film that's pretty straightforward, that's just relentless violence and gore, check this one out. Add it to your watch list if you haven't already. And finally, the last film that I'm going to be recommending today is 2018's Overlord, which I refrained for quite some time from watching it. I don't know why, but finally I watched it, and now if you haven't watched it, I would highly recommend this one. On the eve of D-Day, American paratroopers' aircraft crashes near the beaches of Normandy, France, while on a mission to locate a radio transmitter. As they proceed with caution towards a local village, what awaits them below ground is far worse. Just like Project Wolf Hunting, we have more human experimentation afoot. This second entry by Julius Avery definitely packs a punch, and dare I say has one of the most suspenseful moments when Jovan Adepo's character, Boyce, investigates the underground lab littered with horrific findings. So while being a more polished than gritty film and presenting familiar archetypes, it still excels in its visuals, definitely character development, and having a well-structured narrative that has you hooked from start to finish. I just have to ponder over the fact that I have like 2 films that involve human experimentation, because it makes me think of a film that I had on my top 14 disturbing films for me personally, and one of them being Men Behind the Sun, involving Unit 731. And yeah, that movie is highly disturbing. So this is my 5 recommendations for you regarding the subgenre action horror. I hope you've enjoyed this list. I hope I've given you something to watch, because I kind of want to get back into this format because it's just fun. I like doing recommendation videos more than review videos, especially because I've been doing a lot more new releases and I'm kind of getting a little bit tired of talking about the new stuff. I hope this list has served you well if you have not watched any of these and now you have more to add to your watch list. Have a great night, stay spooky, and be well.